Hey guys, Rob here. In today's video, I want to share with you the biggest insights I got from a book I've just finished reading. And the book is called Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins is one of the world's leading authority in sort of like personal development, self-help. And I thought to myself, I've actually avoided this book for a little while because I thought maybe it's a bit like, cuckoo. But I read the book, it's actually pretty good. It's a lot of psychology in it. It talks about like pretty much how you can get the best out of yourself. So one thing that Tony Robbins is really good at is something called state management. And what state management is if you are in a particular state of mind, like a bad frame of mind, you're probably going to be like very negative throughout the day. If you're in a positive state of mind, you're probably more likely to be positive throughout the day. And because of this, you're going to have, take positive actions. And because of the positive actions you've taken, you're going to get positive results. That's essentially it without overcomplicating it too much. But Tony Robbins basically theorizes that if you can change your state, change how you're feeling, it changes how you act. And because it changes how you act, it then changes the results that you typically get. So this, in a nutshell, is what this book is about. And he actually has a really great quote at the start of the book. And he says that basically people are not lazy. They simply have impotent goals that do not inspire them. So he actually doesn't believe in laziness. He just thinks that people don't have goals that inspire them. And because it doesn't inspire them, their state doesn't really get excited by it. So they don't really chase it. I thought that was a really interesting look into how you can actually achieve your goals. So some of the biggest takeaways from the book is if you have a task or an objective you need to do, it benefits you to visualize yourself succeeding in this task before you actually do it. If you look through any type of, whether it's like a worldwide famous world-class sports person, Conor McGregor, Muhammad Ali, basketball players, Kobe Bryant, right? They all have this like track record of really visualizing. If you look at any of the interviews, they look at like, they really visualize their success before they actually get it. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, they visualize throwing the basketball into the hoop before they actually did it. And then when they did it, it's almost like they trained themselves to do that. I was watching a documentary with Matt Fraser, who was like the male world's most dominant CrossFit athlete. He was like 5 times world champion of CrossFit. And he said that like he used to just visualize himself achieving these things constantly. So if you have like a sales call with a potential client you really want to land, you're probably going to benefit more by visualizing how that conversation will go and the sale closing before you actually do the sales call. What happens then is it gets you into this like positive state. You feel like you can go out there and crush it. And it's kind of like riding a bike. The first few times you ride a bike, it's very difficult. Everything's very alien to you. But after you've learned to ride the bike, you can never really forget how to ride the bike. It just almost happens. But the same thing happens in like, if you're about to close a sales deal, if you visualize repeatedly you closing that sales deal, which is actually very difficult to do, by the way. Like you actually need to really control your mind to visualize these things. And if you visualize it again and again and again, it almost feels familiar when it happens. There's a great interview by Conor McGregor a few years ago where he had won both belts. It was like the featherweight UFC championship belt and the lightweight championship belt. He'd won them both and he was the first double champ in UFC history. And the reporter asked him as he was, sitting in the press conference after his, victory. The reporter asked him, like, how does it feel? And Conor McGregor just looked at him and was like, it feels familiar. I've seen this thing so many times before. Very interesting, right? So that's like the first big idea from this book. The second big idea is to mirror the psychology and the physiology of people you respect and admire, and you will tap into their state. So if there's a person who you look up to, they're very confident, you know, they are just a person who's going out there and crushing it in whatever field that you want to operate in, whether it's like Tony Robbins, whether you're a fighter and you're wanting to imitate Muhammad Ali, or whether you are, you know, wanting to get on the phone call and close a few sales, and you look up to, I don't know, Grant Cardone, Jordan Belfort, whoever you follow, right? If you can try and visualize what they would do, how exactly they hold themselves, and model that behavior, like almost copy it. You've probably seen videos of these guys, you know, if it's like Grant Cardone, you've seen like tons of videos of him all over YouTube. You've seen him on Undercover Billionaire as well. And if you can get into that same mentality and try and mimic that same mentality, how he holds himself, how he carries himself, how he interacts with people, you can actually pretty much mimic the state of him and like the state of mind of him, and as a result you can also mimic the results. This is what the second big idea from this book is saying, which I thought was really interesting, because sometimes we don't actually have the reference point in our brain of actually succeeding. Let's just say this is a business channel, so I'm always going to go for something business. Let's say you're a salesman and you are a failing salesman. You can't close deals very well at all. You probably can't look into your past, your history, and pick out like a bunch of reference points where you have done really well and really succeeded, because they just don't exist, not yet anyway. However, you can probably analyze somebody who's very, very successful in that field, a black belt, and mimic them, model their physiology, model everything about them, and then also probably not produce the same results realistically, but you'd certainly do a lot better than you acting as you, the typical you who hasn't really generated any results so far. Very, very interesting how that works. And I think back to any time that I've had to take on like a big challenge, or, you know, like I've been around people and I feel like underconfident, and if I try and kind of model the person who's the most confident there, it always makes me feel more confident as well. Weird how the human brain works. The human brain is so complex, and there's a lot of psychology and a lot of mindset stuff, and there's a lot of stuff we don't understand. And I think Tony Robbins, he puts like, this book was released in like 1986, and he puts like the best spin on it at that point in 1986 when he released this book. He put the best spin on what he thought you know, was possible with the human brain. And it's not even about like thinking positively, it's about actually modeling the successful people, modeling the positive people, the people who you desire to get results from. Interestingly enough, when I was in high school, I used to listen to a lot of rap music. I used to listen to like 50 Cent, Eminem. I just enjoyed the music, but I found that like I had quite a lot of, I was quite negative at the time as well. And if you actually think back to like the music, it's actually quite like, it's very rarely like positive music, is it? Like rap music, it's like negative music. And as a consequence, like I had like a negative frame of mind. I always, you know, wanted to be like the tough guy and things. Weird how you almost as a human being absorb the behaviors and the thoughts of other people like osmosis. Strange, very strange. So the third thing, the third big idea from this book is that sometimes we stop ourselves from doing something. We are like that trained and have our habits like that firmly ingrained in us. Warren Buffett said, the chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too strong to be broken. And what that means is like, we don't know we're doing all these like habitual behaviors, you know, whether it's personality or whether it's like our psychology is kind of a little bit messed up. We don't know it until we like acknowledge it, but by that point it's become so obvious that it's so hard to break the habits. Very interesting way of looking at things. And basically you have probably got a bunch of habits that do not serve you at the moment. Lots and lots of negative psychology. And what this book was saying is that sometimes we, because of our pre-programmed brains, we get like an obstacle or something which happens to us, or like an opportunity, and immediately we dismiss it. We're immediately like, no, I can't do that. That's not possible. No, that doesn't work. I won't be able to do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. But it's just the habit speaking. It's not actually you, and we've almost been programmed by it. And he was saying that to get out of that, next time you feel yourself say, I can't do that, think to yourself, what happens if I could do that? Okay, so all it's doing is a simple question, and questions sometimes don't even get conscious responses from us. They get unconscious responses from us. And it just makes that little bit in the back of your brain that's not even conscious whir a little bit and produce a scenario of what happens if that is actually possible. So you have immediately objected and said, no, I can't do that. And now you're asking yourself, what happens if I could do that? And then your brain thinks, what happens if I could do that? It envisions this scenario, and now what's happened is it's generated just this tiny little root of possibility. And this possibility, it allows you to look into the future of this scenario that you never even discovered before, never even uncovered. And as a consequence, now that's a potential route for yourself. And if you can just think that every single time, like, what would it take to do this? I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. What would it take to actually do this? How would I do this if I was going to do this? You can ask this on sales calls. You can ask this to potential prospects. You can ask it to friends and family to get them out of their negative looping thoughts, their chains of habit, which are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. And you can even ask it to yourself as well to make sure that you aren't just limiting yourself. Really, really good point. Always ask what the scenario looks like for the impossibility you set yourself. And on the back of that, he was saying that humans live in patterns all the time. What we're doing today, we've done for the last 10 years, whether it's habits, whether it's thought loops still. And he was saying that, like, we have to interrupt the pattern. So as soon as you feel yourself coming up with the same responses that you always do, he was like, just like consciously think, right, I'm going to go and actually purposely switch route here. He does things like this by jumping on a trampoline before he goes and speaks on stage, because it gets rid of the negative thoughts. There's a great clip on his Netflix movie that Tony Robbins did where this person stands up in the audience. It's like this young guy, and he's saying how suicidal he feels and how he doesn't feel worth it. And he's just talking and talking and talking to Tony in front of everyone about how negative he feels, how negative he feels. So if you look at like his state management was very, very, very negative. And Tony actually breaks this state. He breaks the pattern by saying something to him about his shoes. And it broke the guy's pattern because like the shoes comment was completely unrelated to the conversation. So like the guy had to stop his train of thought and be like, why is he talking about my shoes for? Like, he didn't understand it. And he just broke his pattern like that and then lifted him up. Very, very interesting to watch. I highly recommend you guys pick up this book. It's called Unlimited Power. I'm in one of Tai Lopez's masterminds, and he's saying that, like, you should aim to read at least a book a week. He was saying that, like, there's so much knowledge out there, you don't know what you don't know. And he was saying that any sort of patterns that you've seen have repeated through history. Now, I do read a little bit, but I'm trying to read a little bit more. He reads a book a day. And basically what he does is he skims through the book and picks out the main points which are relevant to him. And like, he looks for like that one gold nugget, because he was saying that mostly books are like filled with filler. So I'm trying that out at the moment. I'm going to try and give you guys a book review every 1 to 2 weeks. Hope you enjoyed this book. You can pick it up from Amazon for like $7, £8, something like that. Tony Robbins, Unlimited Power. Leave me a comment below if you've actually picked something up that's insightful about this video, and leave it in a comment below saying what you're going to do. And the reason why I'm telling you to do that is because humans only have a tendency to take action once they have like consciously thought about something. There's so much information out there, and there's good information which you ignore all day long. There's also bad information you ignore all day long. But if you can just take some of the good information I'm teaching you and actually implement it in, you'll do a lot better than what you're doing, okay? So, hope you enjoyed this video. Take care. See you in the next one.